Hello. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. We are live on the Fightful Overbooked YouTube channel for another edition of Degrassi Dudes. I am back once again with the Spinner Mason to my Jimmy Brooks, Steven Jensen. How you doing this Friday morning, sir?
As always, tired, but looking forward to the show. And today we have a pre-recorded interview, so people are gonna get to hear what we talked about this past Sunday with NotAVampyre. So I'm excited for this. And as we were talking before we got started here, today is HBO Max day for Degrassi. So a lot of people are about to be talking about this show that probably weren't before. Just remember that we were here doing this months before it was even announced that there was going to be a reboot. So stick with us, and hopefully more people find the show, because I think a lot of people are going to be talking about Degrassi soon. And yeah, Avery Salmon in the chat. Salomon, I should say. Yes, I saw you on Twitter. Always good to see you. JJ, what up? CM, what up? Board dude, what up? Bam, what up? We got a bunch of people here today. We appreciate it. How you doing, man?
Couple of the regulars, couple of new faces. We love to see it. We love the growth, and as Degrassi gets more popularity or more people rewatching it or watching some seasons for the first time, you could tell them the best thing about watching Degrassi on HBO Max is that you can come Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, here live with Jensen and myself to talk about some Degrassi, and you guys kind of lead the topic on most of these. For this special one, we let our special guest, NotAVampyre, choose this topic, which was on one of the more crucial characters of season 12 and on, Campbell Saunders. And like I've said this the last 2 weeks, and I'll say it again, NotAVampyre. Definitely go out of your way to check out her content. She is amazing at in-depth conversation and just very thoughtful videos on, like, this makes you think about certain characters, like Zoe from the later seasons, and she was gay all along, or Fiona from season 10, she was gay all along. She does a series on Death in Degrassi. She does a series on relationships that could have happened, and she creates the story on how they got together. So, like, we say it in the interview, and I'll say it again, this is a person that we're going to have on more than once for sure. How did you think, Jensen?
Yeah, absolutely. Unquestionably, Vamp is going to become a part of this show on a somewhat regular basis of some kind. I don't know how often we'll be able to get her. It's tough sometimes with people's schedules and stuff to do it often, but it sounded like she had a good time doing it, and we loved having her on the show. So, like, I am more than happy to have them on. Really, almost open invitation type situation. Like, if they're free and they want to come on, I'm good with it every time. It's rare to come across someone who is in as deep or deeper than we are on this stuff. You know what I mean? So, like, it's awesome. And I've been in contact with a former Degrassi character that we both know and love, and hopefully they will be joining us sometime in the next couple weeks. I got to follow up in like another week about that, but I've been in pretty constant communication with a pretty awesome guest potentially. But this person is also very busy right now because they're doing promotional work for the HBO Max and the reboot of the show and all that stuff. But we are planning on getting you some people from the show soon. So I'll next week we won't be here because there's so much wrestling with the collective and Super Card of Honor and all the WrestleCon stuff. And I mean, there's just so much going on in the world of wrestling next week that we won't be here for Degrassi Dudes. But then the following week, we'll come back, hopefully either with that guest or talking maybe, I don't know, we'll come up with another topic, but
we can let you guys decide. Once again, you guys had some great suggestions in our comments when we requested that before. Let us know if you're watching on demand in the comments down below what topics or what characters, relationships, whatnot you want us to discuss on the next episode of Degrassi Dudes. We also, me and Jensen, we met through the world of wrestling media, and we always like to have a little bit of representation of wrestling media on here, and we've both been talking to a wrestler, plus as a wrestling personality to come on the show who have shown that they are Degrassi fans. So we're gonna have a little bit of crossover. So we got a couple of different guests in the running that are gonna be on the show, and you can see that this Degrassi community is growing as it moves to HBO Max. So happy HBO Max to all of HBO Max Day to all of you. I know we've been suffering without Degrassi on YouTube, but now we have a place where we can watch it again.
Well, it's still on Pluto as of right now, but I don't know how much longer that'll last. Like, I think it might still be on Tubi. But see, that's the funny thing about this is like it's been available for free for a while, and I feel like nobody knew that because everyone's getting like all excited about HBO Max, and I'm like, we gotta actually pay for HBO Max. Like it was free like this whole time. It just nobody was really paying attention, but us. It seems like there was a oh yeah. Also, it's so funny because my brother, I've brought your name up a few times recently, and it's funny because when I bring your name up, my brother goes, SP3. Oh, HBO Max. Yeah. I know. That's why I know that name. Because he sees your name on the on the thing. So
yes,
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the fact I think I said it on either on Twitter or I said it to Will yesterday when Will introduced me on Day After Dynamite talking about AEW Dynamite. He popped me from like the moment talking about it because he didn't bring up any of the wrestling content I do on True Hill Heat, any stuff I do on Believe. It is, all the other places I've been on, Wrestle Talk, whatnot. He's like, you do a lot of content, but the first thing he wanted to mention is that his wife is a big Degrassi fan. Like that popped me. That popped me so much because he was like, he thought of us when she said that. And, when they first got together, she was talking about when Drake first became like a rapper, like, oh, that's Jimmy Brooks from Degrassi. I've been following his career since the start. I was like, yes, that was us.
Yeah.
I was like, I was just the guy version who was like, Aubrey Graham is a rapper? Man, that's Wheelchair Jimmy. All I'm gonna think about is Rick shooting him in the back when he raps.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's so relatable because we went through that exactly. And it's funny because like Jimmy on the show, it seemed like his flow was just kind of like off, or he was like figuring it out, but like it was good, especially like when you retroactively go back and watch it now after all of his success, you're like, oh, like, okay, no, he's always been really good, like because he formed that style so long ago. But when it was happening on the show, it was just like, well, that's kind of cool that like Jimmy's trying to rap, like it's pretty good, but like it sounded a little different, now it's become like the sound in music, which is so crazy. But yeah, I think it's pretty hilarious. Like there's so many people I think that are about to get into this show or get back into it again. I mean, even there's other people in like wrestling media that I've told you about that like are interested in this and like they want to come on the show. And it's funny because I've had people hit me up on Twitter that aren't even wrestling fans that are like, dude, Degrassi. And I'm like, if you watch Degrassi news, but you don't watch like any of my wrestling content, I'm like, that's awesome. Like that's so awesome.
You want to pop me instantly? Tell me that you know me from Degrassi news and talking about Degrassi, not in wrestling, because I do 100 different wrestling shows and podcasts, and this is the one where even my wife is just like she likes the fact that I'm able to just talk about something that's not wrestling, because she was like you talk about wrestling so much and you send me the links for all this stuff. I'm just sick of it. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And she, it's not a secret. I've said it on True Hill Heat. I'll say it here. My wife works for WWE, so she's kind of like, she likes to have that distance from the business because she actually works in it. So she's like, she doesn't want to hear about it so much. So she enjoys, even though she doesn't really like Degrassi, she enjoys the fact that I'm able to have this outlet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's just, it's awesome because it is so different from like what we normally talk about. And it's like, I love the crossover audience here of like people that like wrestling, but are also watching this, or especially the people like JJ that are in the chat always that like started watching the show because of the podcast. And now they're fans of the show, of Degrassi dudes, as well as the actual Degrassi program. And then also just the opportunity to meet new people that have nothing to do with wrestling, like just people that are just fans of Degrassi that have wanted a podcast about this, or didn't even know they wanted a podcast about this, and now they're like, man, it's great that there's just people. And it's also like we're two guys that are like, so we have like a different perspective that most of the YouTube channels I've seen are usually female when they're talking about Degrassi. And so I think that adds to it also, because we're giving kind of a different perspective maybe on it. And also we don't take the show too seriously. Like there's a lot of serious topics, and like today is one of them, talking about Cam Saunders, but we can have, I think, entertaining conversations even if the subject matter is like kind of dark and heavy. And like I said, that's super rewarding to me when somebody hits me up and they're like, I just started watching Degrassi because of the podcast, or like, hey, like I found out about the podcast, like, and like they follow me on Twitter or something, and like they have nothing to do with wrestling. It's like they strictly like me because of this, which I think is cool as hell. Like the more the merrier. So yeah, I think it's really cool. And like we keep saying, we have some pretty cool guests lined up. It's just between the guests that we want that were actually a part of Degrassi, they're obviously busy once again because of the reboot and because HBO Max and promotional stuff now. And then the other people that are interested in wrestling, it's like the busiest couple weeks of the year right now for them as well. So like it's gonna be hard for a minute to get that like lined up and locked in. But today, that's why we pre-recorded with NotAVampyre, because we wanted to make sure we got them on the show no matter what. And we have it's like an hour and a half long conversation. So it's going to be, that's what me and SP3 were talking about before we went live, is although we won't be here next Friday, we're giving you like almost like a double episode today. So, so I hope y'all enjoy it. I freaking love this conversation.
Yeah, this was like, I did not expect the conversation to go that long. I literally told my missus, I was like, it's just gonna be an hour, because I was like, with Amanda, we kind of went an hour talking about Time Stand Still, and that's a two-parter. That's a two-part episode, and we went an hour with it. So I was like, oh, it's just gonna be an hour conversation. And then we went, hour and a half, a little bit extra plus, with talking about Cam, because he was in 20 different episodes, but there was just so much to talk about in each episode that he was featured in, because his storyline is so important, so in depth. And I love that, Vamp gave us like the perspective of someone who really was discovering Degrassi at that time, and she has a very high view for season 12, and this is not a season that a lot of our viewers are accustomed to. A lot of our viewers stopped watching in like season 6, season 7, season 8, season 9. So this is a great conversation. I gotta also shout out CM in the chat, because CM, I love her being in the chat, because she follows True Hill Heat, and she's usually in the chat over there in the live chat, and she's always bringing up, if she sees me in the chat, she'd be like, oh, Degrassi dudes. We got later on True Hill Heat, we're premiering Serving Face and Heels with Stephanie Hypes and Miss Chrissy Love, talking about women's wrestling across WWE and AEW and beyond. And she even said, she was like, oh my God, I get women's wrestling on True Hill Heat and Degrassi dudes. I was like, that was one of the best comments, because it popped me so much when she said that. She was like, this is like the double whammy. This is a great Friday for her. So we hope you enjoy this in-depth conversation about Campbell Saunders. There's a lot of sensitive information and topics that we do discuss, because Cam is it's basically a story about a person who deals with suicidal thoughts and has a tragic ending. So if you are kind of triggered, not to use that word lightly, but
well, it is a trigger warning, just a heads up, like that there is going to be very sensitive subject matter during this. It's a fairly lighthearted conversation for the most part, but like there is some really serious stuff in here. But if you've seen the show, you know kind of what to expect out of this conversation. But if you don't know who this character is, I'm glad you brought that up though, SP3, because I think it is the right thing, because the topic of suicide and depression is very heavy throughout this. So if that's something that you don't want to kind of vibe off of this morning, like this might not be the conversation for you, but I think most people will enjoy this. So
Yeah, and just to highlight one last comment from CM, because this is, I feel like this is like the main thing with me and Jensen why we created Degrassi Dudes. CM saying if what y'all are putting out is great, I'm in, especially Degrassi, because no one was watching when I was. I think that's how me and Jensen both feel. We're getting out 15 years of like not being able to talk about Degrassi with anybody else on this show.
Yes, it's almost like it's like coming out of the closet for Degrassi. Like we've liked this our whole lives, and we didn't want people to know because we were embarrassed by it. And now we've just completely leaned into it. Like we don't care who knows, and we're happy to talk about it. So, I think that's the best way to live too, man. Like when it comes to this, wrestling is the same way. Like wrestling is literally the same way it was with this. Like, you know, I just kind of started talking about that publicly more like before Degrassi, but
Exactly.
it was the same kind of thing, same as that kind of feeling where it's like I grew up a wrestling fan. Everyone thought wrestling was fake and stupid, and like I was an idiot for watching it and just lame or whatever. So I used to like when I was younger, like people would bring it up and I like wouldn't get in the conversations, and I'd kind of like watch it by myself and all this stuff. Same kind of thing as Degrassi, and now all I do is talk about wrestling and Degrassi pretty much. So like. That's a lesson to anybody watching this. Like, enjoy your life, enjoy the stuff that you like, and you know, we saw it with Scott Hall recently. So many people had this outpour of like just love for Scott Hall when he passed away, and and I get a little bummed out when I see that kind of stuff sometimes because like we should always be celebrating the people that we like, and we should be doing it while they're alive and while people can appreciate it. So like. Put your stuff out there. Like if you like Degrassi, dude, it's hilarious. When I reached out to this person I keep talking about to come on the show, this Degrassi person was like super pumped. They were like, "You do a podcast about Degrassi? That is incredible!" Like, yes, I am in. Like when I have time, like I am gonna be on that. And so, like, you know, if you're into stuff, go out there and support it and talk about it. And you know, I wish I would have been talking about Degrassi publicly for the last 10 years because. This thing might be huge right now with all the Degrassi fans that we found out have been just out there and not known where to go for their fandom. So like, so yeah, I'm totally with you. Like we are unloading over a decade worth of pent up wanting to talk about this, and luckily me and you found each other through our love of the Mighty Ducks, and then found out that you know I was posting about Degrassi and you were commenting, and it's like. I thought like maybe we were both like a little into it. It's like, no, we're both on the same level of being like obsessed with this show for so long. So like, you never know who else is out there that like you would totally, you know, have this common interest with. So yeah, it's awesome. I love doing this show. It's great.
Yeah, like I said, like I said it on Twitter and I'll say it here. Friday mornings is my favorite because I do so much wrestling content and I love wrestling and I love talking about it. And it's something that I actually can make a living off of and you know provide for my family with. But the most fun that I have is Friday mornings with Jensen talking about trash reality television like 90 Day Fiance and the NBA and then Entourage and South Park, and then coming on here with Jensen and talking about Degrassi and all the other shows we've talked about on this. If you check out the archive, we've had conversations about Bel Air. We've watched the Bel Air trailer together. We've talked about so many other things, but just Friday mornings, just talking about anything non-wrestling and learning that other people are like us and have that love for things outside of it, even though they are on the Fightful Overbook YouTube channel because it is a wrestling YouTube channel. So we don't get the massive amount of views that the other wrestling content gets. But the fact that we have loyal viewers like CM, JJ, Border Dude, Bam, we got Avery in the chat. You know, you guys are like the life sports and things. I don't see him, but he's another one that's one of the favorites that's always in the chat. The fact that you guys come week after week to watch this, it means the world to us. And the fact that we get other content creators who we both enjoy, like NotAVampyre, who after our whole conversation was just like, well, you have the most unique way to talk about Degrassi. That was just like, you just made my heart grow 2 times larger. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's super true. And that's the thing also, we're like, yeah, I mean, we're on a channel that's mainly about pro wrestling. So like it's a strange like it doesn't make any sense, right? Like we're talking about Degrassi on this channel that has nothing to do with Degrassi, and that's part of it too. Where like when you see like the viewer count and whatnot, I never get like discouraged about that because it's like we aren't a Degrassi channel, but the fact that we have this many people watching based off of a wrestling channel is really exciting for me, because if we can get people to come watch our stuff on a platform that has nothing to do with Degrassi, I think that's a testament to like the show must be pretty good, or at least Degrassi fans must really enjoy this, because it'd be different if me and you started from scratch and we were on some channel called Degrassi Dudes or whatever, and it actually was branded as a Degrassi thing. This is more of like, we're two guys who you might know from like wrestling media, so it makes sense that we'd be on a wrestling channel, but we're not talking about wrestling. But it's an interesting thing, and it's always kind of like an experiment, but I think it's working pretty well, man. Like you said, as long as we have these loyal viewers that keep coming back, even if something were to happen where if like Overbooks was like, yeah, this just isn't working out or whatever, we just move the show somewhere else and y'all can just follow us over wherever we go. So I don't think it even matters where the platform is. We'll keep doing this regardless. So
absolutely, some of y'all are from when we were just on Twitch with like 4 or 5 viewers for the entire, like a whole week would go by. We only have 4 or 5 viewers, but y'all guys would be so active in the chat, and we appreciate it so much. Like that's why I shouted out CM, because she was with us SCC on Twitch, and now she's here. So yeah, we appreciate all the love and appreciation, all the comments on social media. You don't know how much it means to us, but let's get into this interview, this chat about Campbell Saunders with the amazing NotAVampyre. Jensen, you can put the video up or give it an intro. Why not?
Yeah, so we pretty much got an intro pretty good there. So yeah, this is me, SP3, NotAVampyre. We have I put her YouTube channel description or in the description. So
great.
If y'all want to check out her YouTube channel after this conversation, go support her, hit the subscribe button. I think you're going to love this conversation. And it'll be about an hour and a half long. So me and SP3, I'll run the video, and we'll be back here at the end of it just to wrap the show up. But without any further ado, hope you enjoy this. Please let us know if for some reason you can't hear the audio or something like that. Or actually, as a matter of fact, let me know in the chat, like once I start this video, be like, yeah, the audio is good, like we can hear it. Just because I'm going to walk away from the computer for a minute, and I want to make sure it's working before I am not looking. So here it is. Me, SP3, NotAVampyre, talking about Cam Saunders.
Hello. It is me, your True Hill Phenom, SP3, back again alongside Steven Jensen, and we have a very special guest for this edition of Degrassi Dudes, one of our favorite content creators when it comes to going in depth on Degrassi, NotAVampyre. We definitely going to have in the description, her link for her channel. Amazing work, honestly. We are such big fans of yours and happy to have you on Degrassi Dudes.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here, and I'm very excited to be here too. I've seen a little bit of your stuff, and I really like it.
We appreciate that. We try to have like, so when we started the show, it was a few months before the reboot got announced. So we kind of had perfect timing on like already just being big Degrassi fans, because we're both in our early 30s. So we're around the same age as a lot of the characters. And we watched the show like as it was airing back in like the early 2000s. And then over the pandemic, we both got really, really into it again, because like we had so much free time and it was like on all like the different apps and stuff. So it's one of those things where like our show's been pretty fun to do, because, you know, calling it Degrassi Dudes and everything, 2 guys talking about the show that like we were like ashamed to even say we were a fan of, you know, 20 years ago. Like we didn't even want our friends knowing we were watching this show. And now it's like we're just kind of out there being like, if you like this show, we want to hear from you, because we love this show, and we're really, really glad you could join us, Vamp. We really appreciate it.
I'm so glad times have changed. Like, I wish stuff like this would have existed back then. I wish there wasn't like the stigma of like, oh, you like Degrassi? Are you sure you're not a girl, actually?
Exactly.
Like all the teen dramas, it was kind of like that. Like if you like, I even
Yeah.
discovered a couple of my friends with like OC fans and One Tree Hill fans, and I never told anyone I was watching all those shows. Like,
Well, my personal opinion, you chose the good one.
Yes.
I did to have a real podcast on where we could go in depth. So we're very happy to have you on. But for anyone who isn't familiar with your great work over on your channel, kind of tell us how you kind of got into Degrassi and started watching the show.
Yeah, so it actually started way back in like the summer of my freshman year. They were showing, I don't know if it was probably current then. Yeah, they were showing just on TV the Degrassi Go Hollywood movie, and I caught it at my cousin's house because I was house sitting, and it was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then I started high school, and a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, I really like the show Degrassi, and they came over and we'd watch it sometime, and then like that was in the start of season 10, and that's when I really got into it, and I've just been coming back to it on and off over the years. It was like in college when I started having these thoughts like, wait a minute, I kind of have opinions about this show. Like, and starting to write them down and like seeing other people on YouTube talking about their opinions. And that really put the bug in my head for years later. Maybe I could like do a YouTube thing about Degrassi.
I love the fact that you kind of just went for it and started talking about it like we told you, like we kind of were nervous like when we found out each other were fans. That's when we were like, okay, maybe it's okay to start talking about it. So the fact that you kind of put yourself out there, I admire you so much.
Oh, thank you. I think I was really empowered by just seeing other people take like their niche interests, like comic books, like musical movies, like a lot of what like Linkara, like them putting their specific interests out there and being open about being interested in these things. I think that really inspired me to do it with Degrassi and not really think, maybe it's a little weird that I'm talking about this teen show as someone who hasn't been a teenager for years.
That's part of the thing too. Like you're kind of like nervous. Like, can I still relate to these things,
Oh
or still I still
gosh.
like
Right.
remember like
Yeah.
how it felt to be that age? And like we said, we kind of were watching it as we were going through
Yeah.
everything. And I know Jensen, I've just got him connected with your channel. Was there anything like any video or something that stood out to you that you want to ask Vamp about?
I mean, I'm interested in really all this stuff. Like just the honestly, what I think is most interesting about the channel is just kind of the perspective you take and like the deep dives and kind of just like analytically breaking down so much different stuff. Because when me and SB3, at least for me, when me and him started kind of talking about the show and doing the podcast and stuff, a lot of it was out of like just kind of not necessarily making fun of the show, but just kind of tongue in cheek, like little things that were really funny to us. Cause like there's so many episodes and so many seasons and so many characters that there is a lot of cheesiness on the show as well, but it's like fun. It's like a guilty pleasure to watch. But then there's these other topics, like you going into characters, like basically breaking down certain characters that like so and so was actually always gay and this is why. And
I
so
love
and
that
like
series.
right and like in deep diving into like Cam's suicide and all, and like because there is really heavy topics in this show, and there's a lot of different ways I think people can look at these topics, and then some of these topics age really well over time and some of the topics age poorly over time as well, because they tried to be super progressive as far as like getting into a lot of topics that people weren't really talking about, especially in teen shows back then. So like sometimes I it's like admirable, but then sometimes they kind of miss the mark a little bit. And I think that I think your channel just does a really great job of like breaking down just really interesting aspects of the show.
Oh, I'm glad. Like, I'm always afraid that I'm just the Degrassi cheerleader, just ignoring any faults of it. And like you said, like it tries its best, but everyone's got flaws. I I think the reason why I come at it the way I do and not talk too much about the more silly aspects of it is because I relate strongly to most of the shows, even still, like, and I still have like memories of being that age. And then also, I think for the most part, like the characters are so well written to where they're like actual people, and like you can understand the through line of like, well, Fiona was introduced into the show this way, but then suddenly she's gay and suddenly she's all this. I think it's well written enough to where the writers like have an understanding of where they can take the characters that still fall into the realm of believability. And I think looking at it that way and trying to see why is it this way rather than, why is she just gay? That's the perspective I try to come at it from. And then also just trying to empathize, like what would lead someone to make the choices that they do, no matter how cringe they are.
Yeah, I like that a lot that you do that. And one of the topics that you have, actually the first episode, first YouTube video of yours that I watched was the addressing the elephant, the race problem episode. And that I really liked you had that up there because me and SP3 have been talking about that almost every show that we do. Like it started off once again almost kind of as a joke. We're like, they kind of made the people of color like secondary, and like they never really had a whole lot going on. Even Jimmy like didn't really have a whole lot going on until he got shot. Like he was just kind of like Spinner's friend, and him and Hazel only kind of seemed like they were together because they were both people of color, because they didn't really do anything with them, and they didn't really have anything in common. Because once Jimmy kind of learns he's more into art, then like he gravitates towards Ellie and stuff. So I thought it was great you made that video, because not only did it kind of reaffirm that like we were kind of like we were kind of right about the stuff that kind of we thought, and there's a lot of other fans apparently that felt the same way we did. So it's good to see other fans kind of putting this out there and being like, you know what, there is these little things we all kind of recognize a couple problems here, but like you did a really great job of like explaining what we were kind of trying to talk about all this time. So
oh, that's good, because that was a very hard video to make, especially as someone like, honestly, I'm white, so I have
same,
I
exactly.
come at it from a perspective that isn't as versed in like understanding all the nuances of this topic, but I still felt like I had to say something about it because, again, I often feel like the cheerleader of Degrassi, so I need to be honest. Hey, the show that I keep talking about how great it is, it's got some issues.
Yeah, and I love it as a like an African American fan of Degrassi. It's something that like initially, like the first episode me and Steven Jensen did, we did like a whole like character tier list, and we kept putting the kind of the black characters like in one section, like they could have done better, they could have done better, they could have done better. Like I like have a connection with so many of them. Like Jimmy, it was cool, like they represented basketball and kind of the interest that I had as a kid, but when you really like take a step back and look at the whole series, they really don't flesh out the character until he gets shot. And then with like Liberty, she's very one-dimensional, and it's great that you have this kind of established character who's never really changing that much, but then they add depth to her when she goes through like a teen pregnancy, and it's all these kind of tropes and stereotypes that is kind of about the African American community, where they don't really flesh out the character really until they do those type of stuff. And even someone who I really like in the latter seasons is Connor. I wish they would have done more with Connor, because Connor was the one that gave me like the most joy in like season 13 and 14, his relationship with Jenna. Like those were some of the best moments in those latter seasons, but they never took it to like the next level and added a lot to it. And I love that you addressed a lot of those things.
Oh gosh, Connor is kind of a tragedy because like he started out so strongly. He was introduced in like season 8 and then going through season 10, like, or no, season 12. Like he was just such an interesting person to watch. And then like season 13 through 14, it's like, well, Connor's basically solved, I guess. Like there's just that one moment with him and Jenna, with him not wanting to have sex with Jenna and Jenna not being sure how to feel about it. And then that other episode where Jenna doesn't know how she feels about others being interested in Connor and what that's going to do to their relationship. It's like, that was good stuff. Where's the rest?
Exactly. I that's why I love your video. Connor is the asexual icon, because I really didn't know what the term meant until I really watched your video, and I was like, yeah, Connor is kind of asexual. And I'm like talking to my wifey, my significant other, where I was like, kind of like some of the stuff, like, you're kind of asexual. I was like, this is kind of like, it's really blowing my mind of that, like, I've met people that can be defined as asexual, and it really, your video kind of opened my eyes to that.
Oh, I'm glad, especially because most people don't know what asexual is. Like, I didn't even know what asexual really was until I started asking, "Hey, am I asexual?"
You kind of need like these kind of genres and these shows to kind of, it kind of lets you kind of look at life in a different way, and I love that your kind of videos go in depth with it. But one thing that I do like and don't like about your channel is that you
Okay.
go against the norm a lot on the opinions of Degrassi fans. And of course, we got to bring it up because I said I was going to bring it up when we had you here. The relationship that we despise, one of the relationships we despise the most, me and Jensen, is Spinner and Emma. And you're the one who made an entire video saying it's not that bad. So we want to hear from you directly. Why are you saying one of the worst relationships in Degrassi history, in our opinion, is not that bad?
So I'm sure I will have said it more eloquently in my video because I'm sure that was scripted. So, but in an unscripted way, it makes sense because of where Spinner and Emma were in their life development, life stages, growth stage, whatever you want to call it. Because Spinner, he has firmly decided that Toronto's his home. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He doesn't want to have like these big ambitions. He just kind of wants to live life, like live the simple life. You know, he's happy with his job at the dot. And so that means he can't really pursue, like, he can't really run after Jane even if he wanted to. And then Emma, she's also coming to that realization, this whole go away to college thing, that's not really what she wants. She wants to be home with her friends and family. Maybe she'll go to Toronto University to continue her bigger education goals, but she wants to be home. And so with that, like, they're kind of at a point in their life where maybe settling down is an okay option, and maybe they're open to the idea that maybe this person who I've never considered romantically before is right for me because everything else I thought that I wanted in my life is wrong.
Yeah, it was. I totally get where you're coming from, and I think that SP3 dislikes this a little more than I do. Like I'm just confused by it a little bit from the perspective of like it just happens so out of the blue, and they just like it goes from like Spinner's feeling down because he found out that Jane had cheated on him. And it initially is just kind of like Jay and Manny bringing Emma along just to kind of like keep him company. They can go gamble, have a good time, take Spinner's mind off this stuff. It was kind of more like Jay just kind of do something nice for Spinner. Like, and then Emma just like falls deep for him. Like all of a sudden it's just like, I'd do anything for you. I want to spend my life with you. And I get it. It is a lot because of what you were saying though. Like, because they do have the similarities in both wanted to stay in like their hometown and all that stuff. But it was just kind of strange how it all just happened so fast. And then they had all these opportunities to like undo it. And like, that was awkward too. Cause like they're talking in Spinner's place and they have that really awkward conversation where they're like, we don't really have to do this tomorrow. And they're like, yeah, you're right. We don't really have to. So what are we doing? I don't know. I gotta go. And like Spinner's like, what just happened? You know, and like so like, but then they just go through it. And all it took, Spike and Snake are pretty rational people throughout the show most of the time. They do have their faults and they do mess up a little bit throughout the series. But like that was another thing too, is like Spinner just like shows up with flowers and they're just like, wait, you're marrying Spinner? And all it takes is her being like, I really wanted y'all to walk us down the aisle. And they're like, okay, we're in. Like, that's cool. We're fine with it. I was just like, this all just happened so fast. Like, what's going on?
Oh, it does. And I'll be honest, like, I come at it from a point of like, well, here's how it could work. But honestly, I don't think it really makes sense either. I honestly don't think they would have stayed together that long. Like, maybe it would be kind of a fluke that they, like, maybe they accidentally end up being the two perfect, like, the couple to end up together. But it really doesn't make sense. And I kind of think Spike and Snake kind of come at it from a point of like, I guess to make Emma happy, but what?
Right. Exactly. It's like, wait, you've quit college. Now you're marrying Spinner out of the complete blue. What's going on?
They're
Didn't
like, are
she
you
burn
okay?
down? She burned down the dot as well. Wasn't that like the whole thing too? Like,
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
how Spinner realizes like he's like smashing stuff in this dot after it's already been destroyed, and like the landlord or boss or whatever comes in, and he's like happy about it because he's like, the insurance we're gonna get off of this mistake is like this is gonna actually help us in the long run. Like good things happen from mistakes, and Spinner's like, good things happen from mistakes. I have to go marry Emma, and like just like runs off. And it's a sign.
He had the epiphany. What so yeah, like Justice said, I'm probably a little bit more adamant against Spinner and Emma because like you kind of addressed it in your video as well, is that it takes away two couples that were very liked by the fans. And I was a huge proponent that Spinner went through a lot of different girls, Darcy, Paige. I love the him and Paige relationship, but I felt like him and Jane, he felt like that was his match. And to kind of have that robbed away, and you also bring up the assassination of Jane in season 9 was just I will never get over that as well. And then we always held out hope that Sean would come back from the military and get married to Emma. So the fact that those two relationships had to end to bring Spinner and Emma, that's probably why I'm so adamant against it.
It's like, I think it's not outside the realm of possibilities that Jane would cheat, but I just wish it could have ended differently. Kind of like what happened when Maya kissed Zig, how Cam reacted, like, well, you still chose to come back to me. I wish that could have been what happened with Jane and Spinner, because they were so good together. They were basically domestic at that point. Like, why'd they have to just break up?
They went like through 3 seasons, and that's an eternity on Degrassi. Like
it is like most couples, they'll get together during one season and then break up the next season. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, and like even like the one I just brought up, Sean and Emma, like they get together in season 1, break up by the end of season 1, get back together at like the end of season 2, break up at the beginning of season 3, and then they get back together in season 6. They're broken up by the end of season 6. So it's just like they had, even though they are one of the most loved couples, their runs are never that long together.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But you bring up a particular name there, and we got to talk about that person, Campbell Saunders. You've done some great videos on the Cam character. Me and Jensen have brought up. Jensen is just really watching season 12, and he's one of those characters that just stands out for a person that was just in season 12. I think he has one of the most impactful storylines, so I'm very happy you kind of chose him to talk about. But what kind of drew you to kind of go in depth about Cam?
In general, I guess it's because I relate to Cam. I've definitely felt most of the things that we see him going through and feeling, and I guess I feel like I have to explain sometimes why the writers who love this character so much to where they almost decided not to have him kill himself in the end, like why they decided to go through with the story, and like help explain that it kind of had to happen this way, not only to educate the viewers but also to help really depict this part of life and existence that, especially at the time, did not get a lot of screen time or really understanding, because it wasn't too long ago, way back in the 90s with Claude's death in Degrassi High, where people view suicide, well, that's selfish. That's like somehow an attack on the other people around the person. Well, it's not quite that. And Degrassi kind of, it was in a position where it could, so it kind of had to show that's not what suicide really is.
Yeah, I thought that like what made this this particular character and suicide and everything like even more kind of impactful for me as a viewer, and I think for people just in general that maybe watch this show is I really like. I say like, obviously I mean this as like a fan. I don't like the fact that he has committed suicide in the show, obviously, but his character is that of like a star hockey player who like the girls like, and like this thing where like he has everything going for him. It's different than like the Rick scenario where he gets like shot after like he tries to do the school shooting and he shoots Jimmy and all that stuff, and like you understand why Rick has gotten to that spot because of like the bullying he's gone through, and he's like a giant loser at the school. But like Cam was like a star athlete and like good looking, and people liked him, and like so it was interesting seeing them take a character and show that side of like mental health and depression and stuff from the perspective of like it doesn't really matter if you're well liked or if you're like great at this sport and stuff, or I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but mental health what I really mean by that is like mental health can really affect anybody no matter what you think from the outside looking in. And I thought that he was an interesting character to do that with because he was a guy who seemingly had everything going for him but still had the mental health issues.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad they chose this character in particular to do it with, because like as shown through the show and through Cam, a lot of the stuff when you're in that state, a lot of the stuff around you almost doesn't matter. Like it affects you and it affects how you think of things, but at the end of the day, the thing that like there's this like a shield over your perception that kind of blocks out most of what other people would consider makes like, oh, your life good. Like you can only then like it's a shield that only lets you see the small specks of bad and make it seem like that's the only thing that's there.
Yeah. It was rough too because like all the signs were like there for a minute too. Like he was kind of like he was basically kind of crying for help like for like a while, and it just kind of kept being like his parents just kind of telling him to get back out there playing hockey and like things will get better and stuff, but like he's just like suffering the whole time. And then he finds like some other like Maya, like he's like super happy with her when they're like at like the photo booth and stuff, and like it was just this was one of the, like the I mean in a show full of heavy scenarios, like this was like definitely one of the heaviest. I remember feeling really, really sad when I was watching this all because you could see it coming, but like you're hoping that it's not going to happen and that things will change and turn around. But then when it actually happens, you're like, man, I wish someone would have stopped this from happening. Like,
Oh yeah. And like as much as I like being able to like talk about this and like praise the storyline, honestly, whenever like if I'm like bouncing around going through episodes of Degrassi, I have to just completely block out Bittersweet Symphony Part 1 and 2 just because it just it is so too much.
Yeah, it's what is probably one of the heavier like two-parters, and it's kind of appropriate. The last time we had a guest on, we talked about Time Stand Still, which is a very heavy two-parter as well. But let's get into kind of Cam's kind of timeline in season 12 of Degrassi. He's introduced in Come As You Are. We can kind of like see him briefly seen standing in the parking lot of Degrassi with the rest of the hockey team on their first day of school. He is later seen at the school assembly with the rest of the hockey team as well. Gives you Hell is kind of like the real first episode where he's kind of given a role and we kind of see what his story is going to be, who's the characters that are going to be a part of his story as well. He is seen in French class with Tristan and Maya being placed in their group. He says that because of hockey practice, he is lacking a French credit, which explains why he is in a class with all freshmen. The next day, he adds Maya as a friend on Face Range, but not Tristan. Maya leaves her Face Range page open in the library, which Tristan uses to his advantage to talk to Campbell without him knowing it's Tristan. Campbell began to like Maya from the first time they met, making him excited when he got a message from her on Face Range. So I like that kind of they introducing kind of this fun story, because a lot of the storylines with like Maya and like Tristan and Zig and Tori at this time are kind of like the fun, because you're kind of just getting introduced to them as freshmen. How did you like this kind of introductory storyline with kind of a soft love triangle of Tristan having a crush on Cam having a crush on Maya, and Maya kind of being indifferent in the whole situation?
Oh, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was the perfect way, not just to start Cam's story, but also like introduce him as a person into this pre-existing dynamic, because we know who Tristan and Maya are. And like, so we need to somehow integrate Cam into this group of friends, because they're like, them playing off each other is going to make up most of Cam's story. And then not only that, but they also use this as an opportunity to develop and also see Tristan trying to figure out, how do I do the gay dating thing? And then how do I i- like struggling with his own identity and also his feelings, and also feeling like he can't be honest about it because he's gay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed like Tristan's character at this point. Like you said, kind of just kind of discovering himself, how he's going to range, and this kind of adds to his story, because this is kind of his first crush that fails, and it kind of becomes kind of the stigma with Tristan. I know Jensen, you're kind of more familiar because you've kind of these are fresh in your mind because you've recently watched these. What did you think of like the Tristan, Maya, Tori, Zig dynamic as they're introduced into Degrassi?
I mean, yeah, it's just interesting, and it's just one of those things where I've seen the first whatever it is, like 10 seasons or so of Degrassi, like up until the Manhattan movie. I've seen those so many times. So like I can almost go like line for line on like all so many of those episodes. So when I started watching the newer when I say newer, the seasons kind of we're talking about, to me it was just kind of like a big reset almost in my brain, because I'm like, these are all new characters. I don't really have any attached to these characters, and it's like a clean slate. So this was me really like learning who each of these characters were. And I will say I called the Miles and Tristan thing, like I probably like everyone did, but I called that so much earlier than it happened. I was like, dude, Miles and Tristan are gonna wind up together. I know it. So this was like kind of me getting familiar with these characters.
I think you called Miles and Tristan way before I did. I did not even consider them possibility until it happened.
Really, I started seeing it a little bit, and then once they started like actually like kissing and stuff, I was like, I knew it. I knew this was gonna happen. I knew it, because they never pulled the trigger. We talk about this on the show often. They never pulled the trigger on Marco and Craig, and that was something that like a lot of fans, including some of the writers, apparently did almost put into the show. So that I feel like they kind of took the idea that they might have had for Craig and Marco, and that was kind of what we wound up eventually getting from Tristan and Miles. So that's kind of how I look at it as like a fan, I guess. But
I mean, the baseline was there. When in doubt, kiss Craig.
yeah, exactly.
Yes, one of the great lines. One of the great lines.
And then Dylan's in the background, like, what?
Yes, but I love that like Tristan was just a different kind of gay character that they presented, because Marco was kind of shy about coming out of the closet, and he was kind of had Ellie as his kind of beard for a while. Then you get Raleigh, who's kind of like hates himself for it,
Right.
and then we got Tristan, who's fully accepting it from the moment he comes into Degrassi, but he still has to kind of maneuver himself around. So they kind of, if you look at those three characters, they're kind of all different but have that same similar trait to them. But I love how they did the Tristan character all together and introducing him as well.
Oh yeah, it's like Tristan's a different generation of gay. It's very different from when Marco and, like you said, even Riley was introduced. Like now it's like, well, it's acceptable to be gay, but like going through high school, you still have the issue of okay, how do I date? But now also, how do I date when gay?
Exactly. And that they kind of fleshed this out kind of in this story with Cam here. So getting back into Gives You Hell, at lunch, he Cam goes over to the group and talks to Maya about loaning her his Lost Season 1 DVD because she supposedly mentioned it in her chat with him, but it was actually Tristan. Tristan sends Maya signals to play along, and she agrees to Campbell's offer for the DVDs. After Campbell returns to his hockey team, Maya encourages Tristan to go to talk to him, and Tristan nervously approaches the table where Campbell jokes at his expense to impress his teammates. Cam knows that if he had let Tristan sit with him, his team would mess with him for sitting with a gay kid. Campbell is later seen standing with his hockey team at the pep rally, as well as a slide for him is seen on screen. And later in the hallway, he apologizes to Tristan and Maya, saying that he's a long way from home and that the team is all he has. He hopes that they don't think he's a jerk, and he walks away. And that's when Tristan kind of tells Maya he needs to keep talking to him. He needs me. So what did you think of kind of like the end of kind of Gives You Hell with Tristan's point of view, Vamp?
It's one of those situations where it's like, you know why the characters are in it. But it's also like, as someone outside of the situation, the obvious answer is, Tristan, you have to tell him Maya's right. You have to be honest. But I think like when we're looking specifically at Cam, especially the instance in the lunchroom where he pokes jabs at Tristan to get him to go away, I think that really, what's the word, lays the baseline, explaining why he's going to later on value the opinion of his teammates so much, and how they're going to have so much kind of control over how he feels about himself, because he's a long way from home and all he has are his teammates. Eventually he'll end up with Maya, but he still relies a lot on his teammates because they're effectively his family.
Yeah, you're really right. Like that just it's a kind of like a small little line at the end of the episode, but it really kind of tells the character traits of Cam and kind of gives you the starting point for where his character would end up. What did you think, Steven?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot that when he's communicating with his parents and stuff, like he's always doing it like over Skype and like stuff on the computer. Like I forgot that he was removed. He didn't have family there. I had completely forgotten about that, actually. So that's a really, really good point, that not only is he kind of battling whatever he's battling mentally, like he doesn't have the support system of his family right there, and he's heavily relying on his relationship with his hockey team, because that's really all he has, like physically around him for any kind of support. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'd actually forgotten that his parents weren't around during this.
Yes. So we go into Gives You Hell Part 2. Cam joins Maya and Tristan in class and gives Maya advice on her audition, quote unquote, for the school play, which was actually what Tristan and Cam were talking about on Face Range, since he still does not know that it's Tristan he is talking to. Throughout the rest of the episode, he thinks he is supporting Maya for her audition when it is actually Tristan. Cam gives Tristan great advice, which inspires him to ace the audition. Later, when Tristan lands the lead, Jules, he sends a message to Cam about the news, but while he is on Maya's account. Maya and Tristan are about to go to class when Cam approaches them, congratulating Maya about her lead role in the play. Maya then says she never tried out for the play. Both her and Tristan reveal the truth eventually to Cam about how Tristan was impersonating Maya on Face Range because he was afraid to talk to him. Cam tells them that they will never be friends, and walks away hurt and upset on what has happened. It's kind of, yeah, like you said, like from the outside looking in, this whole time in this two-parter, you're just like, Tristan, just be honest, just tell him, because when it eventually does, if he would have just been honest from like early on, at least in the first part of this episode, maybe he wouldn't be as upset and hurt as he was at the end here.
Oh yeah, just the deeper they let the lie go, the worse it's always gonna get. Like, and I gotta say, it's amazing that Cam was open to hanging out with these people after what happened.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's a real strange scenario. I don't know how I'd feel about that if I was like, wait a second, that was you the entire time that I was talking to online? Like, what the hell?
Oh yeah,
Not
it's like,
cool.
oh, I come to this school, and are these the kind of people that go here? They just lie about who they are? Okay, great.
Great setting the standard for Degrassi here, Maya and Tristan. So we move into Say It Ain't So Part 1, where Maya invites Cam to sit with her and her friends during lunch. Cam looks like he's about to accept the offer when Dallas drags him to the hockey team's table and laughs at him for even thinking about sitting with girls. Dallas invites Cam to hang out after school with the hockey team, but Cam says he has to Skype with his girlfriend from back home, Jamie. Although Dallas is okay with Cam not joining them, Luke makes a comment saying that Jamie is a guy's name. After school, we go, Cam is practicing hockey, pretending an audience is watching him, chanting his name. Dallas walks in and Cam admits to him that he doesn't have a girlfriend back home. And Dallas says that the hockey team doesn't bite, but Cam says they kind of just make fun of him. Dallas tells Cam that he's hanging out with them after school tomorrow, the day before a game. And then after school, the next day, Cam and the hockey team are at the mall, and Cam tells them, I was on the basketball team back home until they made me pick between it and hockey. Then Dallas tells Cam to use his hockey stardom to pick up a girl. So, of course, he chooses the wrong girl as Dallas tells Campbell to try to pick up Bianca. Cam goes up to Bianca and tries to impress her with the fact that he's a future NHL player and he will make millions. However, Bianca isn't impressed, and when Cam goes with the best pickup line that he can muster up, which is, you want to get out of here and go get some sex?
Oh yeah.
Bianca throws her water in his face and leaves, and Cam is left feeling depressed while he being soaked in water and doesn't know what to do with himself.
Oh, it's cringe. That's so cringe.
Oh my god.
Like I said, the wrong girl to come up to and the wrong line to go with. Let's go get some sex.
Oh my god. Is she with like Drew or anything at this time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, I knew she was
Dude.
with someone. Yeah,
He's
yeah.
at the mall waiting for Drew to get off of work because he works at the
Right.
cell phone place at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh,
What did you
so
think, man?
Oh my god. I mean, it really establishes Dallas as someone who doesn't think he's doing anything wrong, but obviously he's got a lot of faults. I mean, he knew that Bianca was dating Drew. He lives in the dude's house. Like, it really sets up his dynamic with Cam, and then also that the hockey team's his family. It's all he's got while he's here in Toronto, while his family's in some other part of Canada. But also, he doesn't really have them because they treat him like the rookie. Like, they treat him harshly. I mean, especially because he's so good at hockey. So it's like he really doesn't have anyone, and he's also kind of being persecuted for wanting to branch out his social group outside of the hockey team.
Yeah, he just wants to kind of hang out with other people, kind of outside it, and kind of really make genuine friends outside of what he believes is like his family, which is the hockey team, his like adopted family while he's in Toronto, and they just set him on the wrong course every single time. And I didn't even think of that point, man. You made a great point. Dallas knows Bianca, like,
yeah.
like why?
I there was it was just on the tip of my tongue. I just lost what I was gonna say. Darn it! I just had something. I will definitely. Oh wait. No, now I remember. I remember around this time thinking, and I thought this was gonna head more into like a High School Musical type scenario than like a suicide type scenario at this point. Like, I thought this was just going to be like a kid who really wanted to like sing and dance and like hang out with other people, and like it was just going to be a story about him like having the courage to quit hockey because like he didn't really actually like hockey even though he was good at it. So this kind of took like a hard turn once I realized what they were really doing with this story and being like, oh, this is way deeper than just not liking hockey. Like, this is a real thing. But I remember just thinking that around this time, like, that it was, I really thought it was just going to be more about him just trying to find new friends and realizing he kind of like Jimmy, like eventually Jimmy realized he didn't really love basketball anymore. He loved art. So like he kind of moved on to that. I kind of felt like that's where this was heading, and it wound up being a lot deeper and darker than that. But that's just kind of, I just remember thinking that around this time.
Oh yeah, and it makes
Yeah,
sense you thought that because the promo for the season, "Bite Your Tongue," like they had a basically Romeo and Juliet like a setup when they were like doing the preview of what Maya and Cam's story was going to be for that season with the different characters. Like they see each other like Romeo and Juliet, love at first sight, and then they're pulled away from each other by other characters. That's what I like uh, what you're comparing it to. Like it seemed like it was going to be the Jimmy type setup where like he realizes what he really wants and then goes for it. And that's one of the most painful things. I just rewatched the episode that we're going to come to later, just before, you know, Cam's unfortunate end, where he has that moment where like that should have been, I don't like hockey, therefore I'm done with hockey, therefore I'm gonna make my life better. But it doesn't go that way. It should have been what Jimmy had, but it didn't happen.
yeah. So let's get into Say It Ain't So Part 2, where Cam is in the lunch line between Mo and Maya. Maya starts talking to him, and Mo makes fun of the four-leaf clover boxers that that Cam has on. Mo then calls him out by saying that he could use the luck on his underwear for his next game. Maricel goes along with it and laughs with Mo. Maya then chimes in and tries to stick up for Cam, but he snaps at both of them, telling Maya to mind her own business. Later, he unknowingly finds himself in the girl's bathroom, splashing water on his face, and then Bianca walks in and asks if Cam is stalking her and threatens to tell Simpson. Cam looks around and realizes that he is in the girl's bathroom, and he claims to Bianca that he is lost. And we've got a run-in from my daughter here in the background.
Becoming a regular part of the show here.
Yep. Say hi.
Yes.
Say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Say hi. Good job. Good job. No, you can't take the mic.
little Degrassi fan in training over there.
Exactly. She used to watch it when she was a baby with me. When
Aww.
at the beginning of the pandemic, when I was binge watching again, she watched it and she used to love the theme song. But what did you think?
The original theme song, like not
Yes.
like they had some bad theme songs like throughout the years, but their original theme song was great.
it was great. So yes, he claims to Bianca that he is lost and he isn't stalking her. Cam stops Bianca from leaving and begins crying about his problems, and he expresses how his hockey team hates him and about being homesick. So Bianca stops, concerned about Cam and confused as to why he is so sad. Bianca tells him that high school sucks and he should spend time in it with people who don't suck. Cam takes this advice to heart, deciding to hang out with people like Maya, who actually make him happy, instead of only the hockey guys who just stress him out. And at this moment, what neither of them know is that this small piece of advice saves Cam's life. If it wasn't for Bianca, Cam would have continued to spend all his time with the hockey guys and probably would have ended his life a lot earlier than he did. And Cam walks out of the bathroom feeling a lot better than he did earlier now that he has this advice. On the bus, Dallas invites Cam to sit in the back with the team, but Cam refuses and sits in the front and listens to music with a smile on his face. So before we get into the latter half of this episode with kind of Cam kind of really taking the advice into hand, what did you think about like this small little moment where this kind of really shows the growth of Bianca, who comes in as this like real villain in season 10, breaking up the little puppy love between between Drew and Allie, and now you kind of seen her growth from everything that happened in season 11 and how she's able to give that advice to Cam. What did you think about that, Van?
Oh, I loved it. The thing I was actually thinking of how she grew from responding to Adam being trans to
Also
now,
true, yeah.
like immediately in that case, when she found out about Adam, she responded in disgust, and I have to do something about this thing I don't like. Whereas now, Bianca, like she has the immediate reaction of like, Cam being in the bathroom bad, but also she has the maturity to stop, realize that it wasn't on purpose and that this kid's in distress and could use some advice instead of just running to Simpson.
Yeah, and it also kind of highlights, like I know from like myself, like the position that Cam's in when it comes to this kind of stuff is like when you're feeling that down already, just like in general, and then just the little things like the boxers, like the clover leaves and stuff. Like to most people, they just kind of like laugh that off and brush it off and be like, "Oh, okay, he got me wearing some silly underwear, like whatever." But like when you're already feeling that down, it's just like, "Oh, that's just another thing they're making fun of. It's just another thing, another. It just you can never." So it was good to see Bianca like lift his spirits in their talk and make him feel better and help him decide that he is going to make some new friends and try to approach high school a bit differently. But that's just another one of those signs where it's like the things that to most people, the things that Cam is kind of getting poked fun at, like most people I think would just kind of like brush it off and like laugh along with it. But because he's already dealing so deeply with the mental health that like even just anything just makes it even worse and worse and worse. He's just trying to like get out of this hole, it seems like.
Oh yeah, and like I'm sure if you asked Mo at the time, like he would have I think he expected Cam to like roll with it or like kind of laugh along or something else. He probably didn't like we know Mo, he doesn't really do things to hurt other people. So Cam responding the way he did, it really shows how little mental fortitude he had to deal with what appeared to be criticism against him.
Right.
Yeah, and I think this was at the time too, where they were kind of telling that kind of side to Mo that he's always just looking for people to laugh. Like he's just trying to make people laugh. He's looking for the same type of acceptance that Cam is. So he didn't really mean anything by it, but like you guys have really established that this is the kind of the mind state that Cam is in. He's just like feeling it's another thing they're gonna make fun of me about, but. Taking the Bianca advice at little mistakes at the end of this episode, Cam is sitting with the hockey team and his teammates praise him by letting him get one of the last pieces of pizza after the game. Maya walks in and Cam immediately gets up to go apologize to Maya about his behavior. She forgives him and teases him about his four-leaf clover boxers, but reveals that she is also wearing four-leaf clover panties. Campbell asks if she would want to hang out later, and Maya accepts. So then we go into Waterfalls Part 1. Maya is in class when Cam walks in. She stares at him until Tristan and Tori try to get her attention. Tori sees Maya writing a song called Jersey Boy. Then Tori asks about her and Cam. Maya tells her that Cam asked her out, and Maya asks Tristan if he's okay with it. And Tristan sings that his new love is the musical Romeo and Jules, and that she should go for him. Maya then later asks Katie if she can drive her to the mall, and Katie asks if she has a date, and then Maya tells her it's with Campbell Saunders. Katie, who doesn't approve of the hockey players at this point because they just kind of destroyed her whole garden on the roof, she thinks that the hockey guys are all bad news. So Maya tries to tell her that Cam is different from the others, and if she ever met him, she would know that. And Katie agrees to drive her, but she is going to be chaperoning them on their date. When their movie is over, Maya asks Cam if he liked the movie, and he said he liked the best friend, which made Katie ask him if it's because the best friend was the womanizer. And Katie starts to ask Cam a lot of questions to Maya's dismay, embarrassing her. So Maya distracts Katie and runs away with Cam into a photo booth. While the two of them are in the photo booth, they talk about their siblings and how they did crazy and painful things for them. Cam tells her he misses his brother and reminisces about when they used to play hockey together when they were little. Cam shows a very soft side to himself that Maya has never seen before and tells her that this is the most fun he has had since he's been at Degrassi. And Maya tells Cam that she has a secret too, but she tells him something a little less serious and silly. Maya's secret is that she doesn't like hockey, and Cam replies, "Me neither." This leaves Maya and the audience confused as to why he doesn't like hockey, beginning the real mystery of Campbell Saunders. And the two are looking into each other's eyes, clearly enjoying their night. And then Maya tries to kiss him, but Cam chickens out and tells Maya that Katie is probably looking for them as they leave. So this was a very telling conversation here, because that just two words kind of really just opened all the audience's eyes to everything when Maya says, "I don't like hockey," and Campbell replies, "Me neither." What was your reaction, Vamp?
Oh, I wish I remembered my immediate reaction to it. Just I think I watched these as they're airing, so I no longer remember. It was just such a sobering moment in an episode that it was so fun. It was so
Yeah.
reminiscent of like early Degrassi Junior High or like season 1, season 2 of Next Generation, where there was a lot of these silly, just regular school life moments, and then all of a sudden, oh, oh, Cam is miserable doing this thing that everyone loves him for and the whole reason why he's here. Oh. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember thinking too, like that this was gonna be so like this is also just feeding more into like the whole High School Musical thought process that I had, because right around this time, it might have been the same episode, maybe just after, where like I think he actually stops. I think he starts skipping hockey to go do like karaoke with them and stuff.
Yeah.
So like I remember thinking like I had a lot of hope that he was gonna get out of his funk at this point. I was like, okay, he's got the girl that likes him. He's kind of admitting he doesn't like hockey. Like that, this might be like the first step of him like leaving the stuff he doesn't like and then really diving into the stuff he does, and maybe he's gonna turn this all around. Like, so I remember being really, really optimistic about Cam at this point.
Yeah,
Well,
you
yeah,
just
'cause, like,
wanted
at this
him to
point in High
have a
School
happy
Music
ending. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no, it's okay, it's okay. At this point in High School Musical, we saw, like, Troy moving away from his, basketball buddies, but it was okay because it was for something that was good and that worked out in the end, so that's the expectation you have.
Exactly.
So it's tough to kind of go as we go along with this whole story, because this is kind of where that kind of it's a you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then it kind of veers left. So we
Well,
go into
there's one particular moment that I know you'll get to, but and then we're all probably on the same page. There's one particular thing that happens when he's in the locker room when I was like, this is gonna get dark. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, it's downhill from here, basically.
yeah,
Yes. But the glimmer of hope is what Jensen was talking about earlier. So we go into Waterfalls 2. Maya is sitting on the front steps of Degrassi, looking at the pictures of them from the photo booth. Maya talks to Cam when he walks by and gives him the option of where to go for their next date. Cam suggests the garden, and Maya agrees. Later on, they're at the garden, and Maya has a buffet of food set out for them. And while they eat, Maya asks him about his hockey career. Cam seems a little disappointed at the conversation, because this is kind of the influence of Maya's friends kind of talking about hockey, because like she said, she doesn't really like it. But Maya is so like nervous about trying to impress Cam, she accidentally spits juice on him. Cam gets up and says he'll go change his shirt, and then they stand there awkwardly in front of each other. As she leans in to kiss Cam, Maya gets a mouthful of Cam's ear. When he turns
oh,
the
that's
other way, Maya steps back and tells
Oh.
him to break a leg at his game, and then Cam then walks away. This is like the beginnings of Maya and Cam were so cute and innocent. It's like you don't think this is gonna get dark like it does.
No, they're so precious. Like, ah.
I completely forgot about him kissing his ear.
I did
But that
too.
was so cringy.
And-
There's so much cringe here, but it's relatable too, because like I was like that in high school. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was too like when you like had a chance to like kiss a girl or something, like every now and then, like yeah, it just awkward, you know, like, and that's man, that's funny.
So later in class, Maya is texting Tristan and Tori about her date with Cam. Tori and Tristan laugh at Maya's sarcastic text about how awkward the date was and get caught. Madame, who's the teacher, takes the students' phones and reads aloud the messages of Maya's fear of those millions down the drain. She makes Maya, Tori, and Tristan recite the test in French, which humiliates Maya. Cam is very embarrassed and upset by the text, and when the bell rings, he walks out of the room in a rush. Maya follows him and says she's never had a boyfriend before. She doesn't know how anything works, and she wants him to like her. He then tells her that he thought she actually cared about him and not the fact that he was a hockey star. So he walks away, leaving Maya distraught. After school, Maya's in her room playing the cello when Cam walks in and tells her Katie let him in. Cam takes control because he feels that he needs to get a point across. Cam takes Maya's cello out of her arms and lays it down next to them. He then gets down on one knee and explains himself. Cam tells Maya about how nervous he was and how he has never had a girlfriend either and doesn't know how to be in a relationship. Maya is left speechless as he then leans in to kiss her, and they share their actual first great kiss, marking the relationship's true beginning. So like I said, this is the it was like the light at the end of the tunnel, and then we're about to get very, very dark. But anything to say about their first kiss between Cam and Maya?
Just that's it. Like, it's perfect. It's young love.
It's very precious. It's very like you said, like it reminds me of like the early season 1 of the Next Generation with Sean and Emma on their first date. These really beginnings of Cam and Maya really are reminiscent of that.
Oh yeah, it just perfectly captures what trying to do romance, especially at that age, is like, because no one gives you a handbook. It's just like, okay, you're supposed to date, then eventually get married, have kids. There you go, perfect. Have fun, and you're like, okay, but what about all the in between? It was so good. I wish they could have had a happier ending.
Yes.
Absolutely agree there. But like I said, it's getting dark now. So we got Rusty Cage Part 1. So the Harky team isn't letting him letting Cam forget about his past few games that haven't gone too well, but he feels he's in the zone. In their newest match, the Ice Hounds are close to winning, but he tries to finish the game on his own, and he ends up letting the other team win. The next day, he talks in class with Maya, Tori, and Tristan, who all think that Cam needs a break from hockey, and invites him to karaoke night at Little Mistakes, but he has practice and can't miss it. He is later then seen at Skyping with his mom and tells her that he's homesick and feeling badly about hockey. He can't seem to play very well and doesn't know what's wrong with him. His mom tells him to stay positive and stay away from the dairy, which always makes him sick. He gets to practice and overhears the rest of the team making fun of him. Dreading another night on the ice, he drinks an entire jug of milk and makes himself throw up in the change room, ensuring that he can get out of practice. He tells his team that he has the flu, but he heads straight for Little Mistakes instead of home, and he tells Maya that practice was canceled. And Maya is of course excited to have a singing partner. He is terrified to sing, but Maya gets him to open up, and the two have a great time singing "In the Name of Love." And Cam is actually a really good singer, by the way. Just had to mention that. Unfortunately, someone videotapes their performance. That's Tori, because that's what Tori does, and the Icehounds see it. The coach skated the team hard for an hour, and now they are going to make sure that he gets the same punishment. The team watch as Campbell practically skates himself to death, and when they finally decide he's had enough, Dallas stops him and he collapses on the ice. In the change room, he is seen sweating, extremely tired when Dallas talks to him and tosses him a Gatorade bottle to hydrate. When Dallas leaves, Cam has another breakdown, tossing his equipment, and to notice a large cut on his hand. It's like Cam doesn't notice what he does until he calms down, and after he notices, he covers it with a towel and to stop the bleeding. And this scene kind of really foreshadows what is going to come in the end. So what did you think about this first part of Rusty Cage here, which is kind of like the eye opener of where they're going with this story?
Yeah, this is really the point where it's like, if you haven't been picking up on stuff, him with the cut in his hand and how he looked at it, like he wasn't like immediately concerned or like, oh my god, what's happening. It's just more just like, just sort of observing the moment. That's the scariest part to me, at least, especially having been somewhere like that, because it's like it immediately tells you something's very wrong. And if you hadn't noticed by this point, now you've got a hint that things are not okay with Cam. It's not just that he hates hockey and that he's homesick. There's a lot more going on.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought up the milk, because I remember him having the excuse of being sick, but I forgot that he made himself sick with the milk.
Yeah.
And then I remember before he got that cut on his hand, maybe it was earlier in that same episode. It was either that episode or maybe the episode before. But I remember there was a scene where he's in the locker room and he's just like looking at the blade of the skate, like and I remember like Degrassi doesn't just like do that stuff. Like they always they'll drop hints about things, and then like it's just a lot of foreshadowing going on the show. And I remember him like really looking at the blade of his skate for a minute and thinking like, that skate's really damn sharp. Like, I wonder if this is something that's like maybe hinting something for later. And then, like I said, later that episode or shortly after is when this happened, where he threw the skate and then he gets like cut on his hand. And like you were saying, Vamp, like it was like he like looks at it almost like the reaction I would have is I'd immediately be like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, and I'd like go wrap it up and go tell someone like, hey, I got to get this fixed. Like it'd freak me out. And he just kind of like soaks in the moment. And you're just like, oh, and I immediately start thinking about Ellie immediately when I see something like that. I'm like, is he going to start like using his hockey equipment to hurt himself? Because like, he just realized like he might, I didn't know how to digest it, but it was like he wasn't freaking out about it in the way that most people would if that happened to them. So it was definitely a big red flag.
Oh yeah, and then I think I can't remember if it's the next episode or a couple episodes later, but we see him like respond to another stressful moment in the locker room, pressing his skate to his hand, but like kind of suggesting that he's going to go down the road of Ellie, but then like rejecting that because like we see that even that's not helping Cam. Like he's not gonna like go down the road of Ellie because hurting himself isn't making him feel better. So that leads the question of what will make him feel better if he gets to that point.
And that's another good point too, is like that I remember seeing that it was like that next time that you're talking about where he puts his hand on the blade. And I remember when I watched this the first time, I looked away from the screen because I was like, oh no, like, oh, I can't watch this. And then he doesn't do it. And I was like, okay, now I'm really confused. Like, you know, so yeah, we're getting to the kind of the darkest parts here. But that was that was a real, that's what I was alluding to, by the way. I'm sure you knew, but like what I was saying, like when the stuff started happening in the locker room was really when I was like, oh no, like this really isn't good.
Yeah. And I gotta say, they did a really good job of it. Like, again, as someone who's kind of been there, like that's like they really captured that experience well, both of like responding to the after effects of hurting yourself and then also when that doesn't work. Like, oh, it is so good. I don't think they could have done it better.
They do a really good job of kind of like you see kind of the steady like how things progress in his mind. So we go to Rusty Cage 2. Cam is seen with Maya in the media room examining his plays from the last game. He then comes to a conclusion that he should play right wing instead of left. Maya thinks that this is maybe a good idea, and Cam knows that the coach might not approve because he's a rookie. So Cam thinks of asking Dallas, who's yelling at Luke and the twins for dangling off the balcony, which is another foreshadowing moment. When Cam approaches Dallas says he'll see and walks away. At the game that night before Cam hits the right wing, Luke threatens him, saying that if Cam makes them lose, he'll make his life hell. Cam notices Maya and Tristan and starts to smile. The game begins and Cam is going strong. By the end, the game is tied 2-2 and Cam makes it a goal, making the game 3-2 and winning the game for the team. In the locker room, Dallas and Cam are about to leave when Dallas surprises Cam with the press. Obviously, knowing that he has stage fright, he invited them anyway. Like it's like you should know Cam by now that this is probably not what should be done, but Cam doesn't speak, so Dallas, grinning, goes outside to speak to the press. Cam inside the locker room has a panic attack, like we established, obviously knowing Dallas's plan, and he grabs his skate and almost cuts himself before setting it down. The next day, he skipped school and stayed at home, making Maya worried. She kept texting him, at first joking with him about skipping, then getting to the point when she's asking if there's anything wrong, then he would tell her. Cam is sitting on his bed reading his text. He's looking at Maya's, and then goes to look at a picture of his mom sent him with her, his sister, and little brother in Icehound jerseys. He then grows sadder and starts packing his bag, wanting to go home. Before he finished, though, Maya dropped by after school, who is checking on him and dropping off his homework. She asks him why he's ditching, and he admits that the team hates him and he just wants to be happy. She says that he should take a break from hockey and try other things. She kisses him on the cheek, and Cam smiles, and she asks him if she'll see him at school tomorrow, which he says yes. The next day, Cam is seen dangling on the railing where Luke and the twins were the day before. He waits for someone to pass by and jumps off, hitting the ground. He is seen by Miss O, who calls the hospital. He is seen leaving the hospital with Dallas with a broken arm. Maya arrives, and Dallas tells her that Cam is going to be out of hockey for 6 to 8 weeks. Dallas leaves, and Cam and Maya have a conversation. She confronts him, asking him if he did it on purpose. He tells her he's not one of those people who hurts themselves, and tells her that she makes him happy, and they kiss. So what did you think about Cam kind of going to a next extreme of hurting himself? Let's go Jensen first.
I mean, it's just really sad. It's just like more and more of these just red flags, just, but it's one of those things too, where people are just kind of, most people don't understand what he's going through. So like, they're not, it's hard because as a viewer, it's like, it seems so obvious at this point, but from the other character standpoints, it's like, but he's still this good looking guy who's great at hockey and like, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, man, now you're going off and breaking your arm on purpose, basically, just so you don't have to play hockey. Like, I just really wish he would have just quit hockey. You know what I mean? Like, and I know it's tough when, and they really do a great job establishing how hard of a decision that would be for him when he is getting pictures of his family wearing the jerseys, and like, and everybody's such a big fan of his, and everyone just expects him to be this great hockey player. And it's something he's really good at, but like, he doesn't actually like doing. So yeah, it's just sadder and sadder. And like, then when you realize like he's willing to jump off that thing, like what's next? You just, and it just got really dark.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And like on top of that, even if you were to quit hockey, then that means giving up Maya too, because hockey's the only thing keeping him at the school. And
Right.
I really like how you put it, that like, from our perspective, it's obvious that something's very wrong with Cam and something needs to be done, but no one else could see it that way. Like Maya, she just sees it as Cam's going through a rough patch and just needs to make a couple changes and he'll be happy. And then on Dallas's side, he thinks Cam just needs some tough love. He just needs to be whipped into shape. Like, running him back and forth on the rink seemed to help, because now he's like helping with them win games now. And, he just needs a little bit of tough love, and then he'll be happy to talk to the press and stuff. But no one else can see what's happening.
Yeah, it's a lot going on that's going on really in his head. And then we move into kind of Doll's Parts, which is another two-parter. So Maya and Cam are kind of in this weird place. They've been going out for a month. Maya mentions that they've only kissed about 6 times, so she tries to heat things up when they're doing homework in Cam's room. She takes off her shirt to kind of like heat things up between them, which Cam doesn't know how to respond to. There's this awkward moment where she tries to put the shirt back on and she falls off the bed. Later at school, after asking for girl advice from Tori, Maya decides to have a makeover so she would look prettier for Cam and possibly compete in a beauty pageant. After Tori and Tristan finish, she asks if Cam would like it. Tristan replies that he'd be crazy not to. She goes to Cam's locker and asks him about her new look. He asks her why she is dressed like that and laughs when she tells him that she is thinking about doing a beauty pageant, saying it's not her thing. upset and almost in tears. She yells that she doesn't know what he wants anymore and runs into the music room. Zig finds Maya crying and alone, and she explains to him that Cam laughed, and he tells her to compete in the beauty pageant because she should want to not, because of what Cam thinks. After the pageant, though, Maya calls Cam and breaks up with him, ending their first relationship. So this was kind of a sad part, but we move into dolls parts part 2, where kind of you can see kind of Maya kind of getting closer to Zig as she prepares for the beauty pageant, which he actually spots Cam, and she mentions that they broke up, and he apologized, asking why she didn't tell him. She says she didn't feel like broadcasting it to the world, and then he asks if things would be awkward. She says no, and he leaves. Cam comes up and says that he messed up, and then asks for a second chance, and if she still likes him. Maya says she liking him was never the problem. He asks what's wrong, and she says he doesn't like her. He says that's crazy, but she says that Zig tells Tori she's pretty all the time, and he never says it once to her. Cam says he didn't know he had to. She says he doesn't have to, but he apologizes and tells her he's not smooth like Zig, but he really does think she's pretty. And Maya asks why he never wants to kiss her, and he sighs and says he would try harder. She asks if he doesn't have to try, and that Katie was waiting for her, and then she walks away. We get into the whole like beauty pageant where Zig helps Maya, and Zig takes this as a chance to kiss Maya. They kiss at the beauty pageant while Zig is still going out with Tori. Maya feels guilty and regretful when she is about to admit her flaw for a portion of the beauty pageant. She freezes and just calls herself a bitch on stage, and then runs off the stage. She goes to Cam's house, and in tears tells him he was right and that pageants are stupid, and asks if he could forgive her. He does. The next day at lunch, Cam, Maya, Tori, and Zig are all sitting together discussing the pageant that Tori won from her speech, and Maya says she earned it. They both apologize to each other because they got catty during the beauty pageant, and Tori mentions that she can't believe Maya lost and that she looks so pretty, and Cam says that she always looks pretty before kissing her hand, as Zig looks on very, very jealous. The bell rings, and Maya stays behind, telling Zig she regrets the kiss and that she was confused and caught up in the pageant, and then leaves with Cam before they share a quick kiss right in front of Zig. So what did you think, Vamp, of this love triangle being formed here through the buddy pageant with Zig, Maya, and Cam?
It was a really good story, like on so many levels. It's a good story to show, like, beauty pageants aren't just the vapid, superficial thing that typically is shown. It's a really good moment for both her and Tori. Especially Tori responding to sort of feeling a little challenged in her area, like what she considers to be her thing, and then Zig. But more towards Cam, like it was really. I think it's really good on multiple levels because on the one hand, you've got like a first romance where they don't like Cam doesn't really know what he's supposed to do, and he also is used to Maya as a person. He's not like he knows that she doesn't really care to kind of like dress the way Tori does and like do the beauty pageant thing and all the makeup. So he's confused when suddenly she seems interested in that, and then like he also doesn't really know how to show affection because again it's his first romance. But then I also can't imagine that he doesn't really feel the desire to show like physical affection to Maya because of his depression and how caught up he is with his own stuff. So it's kind of like in his mind, he forgets to show how he feels about her.
Yeah, and there was a few things too where like when Maya's talking about wanting to do the pageant, part of me wants to be like, damn, Cam, like with everything you're going through, you feel like Cam would be like, oh yeah, you should do that. Like if that's gonna make you happy, you should do this stuff that makes you happy. Like and like instead it kind of forces like a rift between them. And then something else that I don't know if this is how it is or not, but it's something I've kind of think about when I see the stuff with Cam not kissing her and stuff is part of me thinks that like also maybe when you're like going through depression to the level that he is, like you were saying, Vamp, maybe a big part of it is just like he is dealing with a lot of this stuff and just doesn't know how to act. But another part of it could be like he's already feeling so low that like if he were to go in for a kiss and get rejected or something, that would just put him at like rock bottom. You know what I mean? So it's like I think he might also be just afraid to like fully express himself because like every time he does anything, even as little as wearing boxers with clover leaves on it, he gets roasted and feels bad about it. So like imagine how he'd feel if he tried to kiss this girl that he likes and she like pulled away or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it would crush him. So yeah, just unfortunate. And the Zig stuff, like but a good story though, like you said.
Yeah, good story, but Zig, man, you're not doing yourself any favors.
No.
This is establishing that Zig is not very good in relationships and not very good with Maya in general. But
No.
over the next couple of episodes, they kind of just established that Cam's arm has finally healed. He's being tutored by Allie. She helps him get a C+ on his chemistry test. In Tonight, that's when Maya finally admits to Cam that while they were broken up, she kissed Zig. He says this sucks and walks away. Cam shows that he is trying to hide the fact that he is upset with Maya's news and pretending to be happy on the outside. At the Battle of the Bands, Maya is worried about because Cam hasn't been answering any of her calls. And backstage at the Battle of the Bands, Maya yells at Zig saying how she loves Cam and doesn't want to be with Zig. And that's when it's revealed to Tori that they also kiss. When she's on the stage to sing with Whisper Hug, she notices Cam in the audience cheering her on, sending her good luck, and Cam is proud of Maya for her performance and wanted to support her just like she did at his hockey games. Cam talks to Maya after the show and they talk about their relationship. He tells Maya he's not going to let her go that easily, and they share a very long kiss together. Then in the Degrassi Las Vegas special, we kind of see them just together briefly. He says that he's leaving Toronto over spring break to visit his family, and then it's the episodes that Vamp said she blocked out from her mind. It's Bittersweet Symphony. Part 1 is the official final episode of Cam. So Cam arrives at the beginning back to Degrassi after his trip back home to visit his family, and Maya immediately runs over to him, jumps in his arms, excited to see him. It's Spirit Week. They find out that they're going to be on different teams and that Maya is on the same team as Zig. Once the games start, jealous and paranoid, Cam elbows Zig in the eye and asks him for a fight. Maya and Dallas both attempt to break up the fight, but all four are sent to the principal's office. When Mr. Simpson is interrogating them, he wants an explanation, and when Cam tries to say that it was an accident, Zig pushes for Maya's input, and she puts the blame on Cam, getting him suspended for the rest of the week. Dallas is frustrated with Cam and gives him a lecture on how he is being selfish, and Dallas pushes him and demands he stops crying in public because it's embarrassing. Dallas walks away, leaving Cam alone in the hallway feeling depressed. He runs into a random classroom where he throws his backpack and kicks a desk out of anger. He doesn't notice that his tutor, Allie, is in the room working on a chant for her Spirit Week team. Cam cries to her about how he messed everything up and he wishes he could go to sleep and never wake up. Allie doesn't see the signs that he is upset and needs help, but she does her best she can and gives him advice to patch things up with his girlfriend. This in line goes with Allie and Dallas' relationship, because at the time, Dallas was really pushing to go out with Allie, and then hearing how Dallas treated Cam kind of puts them farther apart again. Later on, Cam shows up at the Matlin house, and then he brings Maya flowers, and she convinces him to stay for a while. They're cuddling on the couch when Katie comes, tells him that Cam has to go home, but they convince her to let Cam stay over for a sleepover. In the morning, Cam leaves and sends Maya a video message saying that he is gone due to an early hockey practice and plans to meet Maya later in front of the school. Cam is sitting on the front steps. He has like the little doll that Maya has. He took it from her so she would meet up with him. And then Zig walks by. He ends up calling Cam a psycho, saying that he and Maya won't last because of it, and this deeply upsets Cam. And as a result, he calls it off with Maya via text message, saying that I'm not coming. Sorry, it's over. Maya suspected that he meant their relationship was over, but he was actually referring to his life. Cam mysteriously disappears and is not at the steps anymore where he was supposed to meet Maya. And due to his mental illness and everything that has happened so far, Cam has an emotional breakdown and commits suicide in the Degrassi's greenhouse that night. So we start Bittersweet Symphony Part 2. Eli and Claire come upon the body in the school's greenhouse where he lies dead. Thankfully, they didn't show this. This is the difference between how they treated this storyline and why I criticize 13 Reasons Why. I know Vamp has as well. This is the difference between these two shows and how they treated this storyline. But they didn't show how Cam died, which was good. All students are affected in different ways from Cam's suicide, whether it's grieving, depression, guilt, denial, symphony, wondering, comedy, helpfulness, curiosity, relatable, numbness, or any other way to cope with the tragedy. The student council plans a candlelight visual for him, which Maya is asked to speak at. While she is writing her speech for the visual, she is reminiscing about Cam as she rewatches the video he sent to her after leaving early after their sleepover. At the candlelight visual, Maya speaks. Yes, and calls his actions out in front of the entire school, saying that Cam has so many reasons to say and he chose not to. And despite Katie trying to explain Cam was mentally sick, Maya declares she would have helped him if he gave her a chance, but he didn't. Maya then says that she refuses to cry or light any candles for him before she runs off.
Yeah, heavy. I mean, there's so many, like, on one hand, it's like you wish that these kids would have helped him throughout this thing, but at the same time, they are also like young, kind of naive kids themselves, like that aren't like professionals, like that, like, so part of me wants to blame all the people around him, but part of me is like, how much do they know about this stuff at this point in their life as well? And then on top of it, of all people to find him, it was Eli. And it's like the like probably the last person. I mean, like, no one wants to come across something like that, but like Eli with his history and like the deaths and the darkness that he deals with, like, he is the one who finds Cam too, which is just like the icing on the cake of like, wow, this is just a really, really bad thing that it's just gonna affect a lot of people as well.
Oh yeah. One thing I want to go back to what you were saying, why no one helped him. Like, something that I think also gets overlooked is Cam never exactly asked for help either. Like, he never reached out and was honest about how he felt. Like, and not that he didn't try, like, he did tell people how he was feeling, but I don't know if Cam even really understood the degree of the stuff he was feeling and the severity of it, especially because in that state you feel like, well, all your problems are your own, and if you can't handle it, well, like, only you are able to address it. And uh, it, it's just such a tragedy. There's so many different ways this could have been avoided, but it wasn't really, like, some of it was the decisions people made, and the others were just like those options were never opened because of how things were.
Yeah. Just such a bummer. Just such a sad story to watch play out. It's such a likable guy. Like, I like Cam a lot. I thought he was like a great character. And it would have been a great story and message if you would have gotten like beaten the depression but at the same time, in all honesty though, for a show like Degrassi, I do like that they went there. Or that's the whole tagline for the show. Degrassi, it goes there. But it went because like this is a thing that does happen in real life. So like, they did depict a very realistic scenario with him too. So like, I think maybe this story saved a lot of real lives at the same time that watched this. So I from as a fan, it's like I like that they went there with this for like the real life scenarios and messages this puts out and maybe helping people for real. But as like a fan at the same time, it's like, man, it would have been great to see him just
Yeah.
turn it around.
Yeah. One of the reasons why, like we were saying, like Cam, he was so likable, and like you like him as a fan, and then the people around him like him. That's one of the reasons why I'm glad they came back to a suicide storyline. They had done this in Degrassi High, like I mentioned before, but they did it with a character that we didn't really see too much of. He was basically Caitlin's boyfriend for a time, and that was about it. And then he comes back in season 2, just before he commits suicide. And I feel like there was a lot of disconnect between me as an audience member and him, to where it kind of hit differently, like because we weren't really in his head very much, whereas here we get a front row seat to understand what Cam's going through, and how much like how much like how it can, like the stuff that leads you to suicide affects you, and then also doing it with someone so likable where you're rooting for them. It makes it feel less like it's happening and more like you're involved in some way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's very true.
Yeah, and then like we won't go too much into like the ripple effect, but this affects every character kind of differently. Like Eli has PTSD that he has to deal with. He starts doing like drugs for a while after this. Dallas, this really starts his redemption story,
Oh,
kind of
yes.
like because he realized that he kind of handled this whole situation wrong the entire time, and it really starts his like growth as a character. Zig feels an enormous amount of guilt for what he said to Cam prior to his committing suicide, and it kind of like you think it's gonna bring Zig and Maya together, and it really separates them. And Zig goes off and goes on his own journey, and then it really affects Zig's and Maya's relationship for the rest of the time, because then Maya feels like she has to save Zig, and it affects every single relationship Maya has,
Oh,
from Miles to Zig, and it still gets brought up until Degrassi, the next class, season 3, when she's talking to Saeed, when she's like going through her kind of depression and everything after the bus crashes. It's like so much ripple effect from a character that was just in one season. That's why I'm very happy that you chose Cam to talk about there.
Yeah, it's really a credit to the writers, like just how well that they showed the far-reaching tendrils of this one instance. For a lot of characters, they do eventually move on after this season, but especially for like Maya and Zig, it still affects them. Especially Maya, in everything she does after season 12, you can trace it back to Cam.
Truly, like it definitely is like the kind of a common theme that she always is worried whenever she texts a boyfriend or someone that she's close to and they don't answer. She's always worried because in the back of her mind she remembers Cam.
Oh yeah, I think one of the best ways they showed that without saying it directly was in season 14, when Maya was having the nightmare of Miles hanging off the banister that Cam jumped from, like being afraid, oh, Miles is just another Cam. I need to right my wrongs, and I need to actually save him this time. Otherwise, it's just going to happen all over again.
Yes, it's a lot of stuff that comes out of this, but yeah, this is probably the most impactful storyline. I would say this Cam's characters arc as well as Adam's character arc are like the two most important from like season 12 on, and those last 3 seasons of Next Generation.
Yeah, I hate to say it, because like I season 12 to me is like basically perfect. I love everything about it. There's so much good to it. But I think the defining thing to season 12 is Cam's storyline. It just stands above everything else.
He's I think it's pretty safe to say he's the most impactful character for the shortest amount of time of anyone in like the history of the
Yeah,
show. Like someone who had such a short run but affected so many characters in such a short amount of time.
Oh yeah, every so often I skip through the episodes to like remember things, and I always forget how few episodes he is in. It seems like it goes on a lot longer than it does.
Yeah. Well, Vamp, next time we have you on here, because there definitely has to be a next time,
Yes.
because you are phenomenal on this show. Like,
Thank
this is
you.
incredible. Next time we'll pick a topic that's like funny and lighthearted.
Uh,
we'll have a good time.
Well,
Yeah.
I did save one because I talked about earlier with Vam's opinion on Spinner and Emma and how I'm very passionate on the other side of that. I didn't also bring up that she has been positive about Jensen's, in his opinion, the worst character, which he doesn't even call by her full name. He calls her
Oh,
Oh.
Trashly
Trashly
Kerwin.
Kerwin. Yeah.
I want to hear the difference in opinion with you, Vamp, on Ashley Curran and Jensen. I saved that, so we're gonna leave
Yes.
that as a cliffhanger for the next time that we have you on here on Degrassi Dudes. But please,
Oh.
Vamp.
It's funny
Shots
because
fired.
it's honestly become more of a meme than anything else. Like, she's a character just like kind of a little unlikable, but we've just taken it so far that direction. There are far worse characters than her, obviously. Like, we did like the tier list, and there's of course like Luke's out there, and like Damien's there and stuff. But like, what about Damien? Did you like Damien? We didn't like Damien.
Yeah,
We thought
no.
he was too much of a player.
They're no fun to hate, like, because it's just like, yeah, they're bad, so what? But at least it's fun to hate on Ashley, and it's fun to disagree about Ashley.
Yes,
Exactly.
that'll be fun. We'll do that next time. We'll have Vamp on next time for an Ashley Kerwin discussion. I think that'd be interesting. That'd be a lot of fun.
That's gonna be the ultimate deep dive on Ashley Curran. That's great.
I always think of myself as the one Claire defender. I guess I'm now the one Ashley defender.
You are because I'm with you on Claire. I love me some Claire. I feel like she's the face of the series from like season 8 on. They kind of like make her the face. But please, Vamp, let everyone know where they can find you on social media, your YouTube channel, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, I really appreciate it. I'm really flattered. If you want to check me out, you can find me at Twitter. My channel is called NotAVampyre. I'm sometimes on Twitter. I'm on YouTube. My channel on YouTube is NotAVampyre. I'm on Twitter at NotVampyre. Check me out, especially if you like Degrassi, and then sometimes other stuff like musicals, deep dives, and analysis into that.
Yes, you do some great work, and we're going to have it on the screen for you right now, me and Jensen in the background while this interview plays. But thank you so much for joining us. And this is just part 1 because we're going to have you back on for sure. This was a great conversation, and we appreciate you coming on.
Oh, this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And then back to me and Jensen on the live one. So see you in a bit.
Yo,
what's up?
Hope y'all enjoyed that. That was a solid like hour and a half of just, in my opinion, just some really, really, really great deep dive conversation about a really interesting character. And we had a really, really interesting guest. And we've already set it up for next time, because next time we have Vamp on, we can talk about Ashley Kerwin. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, and you guys were great in the live chat. CEM, Pile Driver Finisher, Border Dude, kind of talking. I was in the live chat with you guys, chatting about everything. I love Avery saying that his boss heard him watching us and said, "Oh, go along as long as the work is done." And yes, Border Dude, that was a good therapy session to kind of get through and have the conversation that was needed to be had about Cam's character, because he touched on a lot of different subjects, and suicide is very serious, and it's all about seeing the signs in the person. So it was very great to kind of do a deep dive and take a step back and look at it from the bigger picture.
Yes, absolutely. So that'll do it for this episode. Hope y'all enjoyed. SP3, plug the stuff that you got going on. And once again, we will not be here next Friday, but we will return the following Friday. And we'll probably do a watch along the following Friday too on Twitch afterwards as well. This week we won't do that because we had, we gave you 2 hours here on YouTube. So
Yeah, we usually do an hour and then we give you the hour on Twitch to do the watch along. But I think we went deep enough into the episodes about Cam that we don't need to do the watch along today. Plus, me and Jensen are both have some things to do in preparation of Mania Week. But you can follow me on the Twitter machine at TrueHillSP3. I've been all over the place this week. You can see me on the NXT review over on the Wrestle Talk podcast YouTube channel with Sat E, Nyangi, and Tempest. You can see my my review of AEW Dynamite along with Jimmy Macaram over on True Hill Heat AE Ramble number 35, the agony and the ecstasy, as well as me and Will Washington talking about AEW Dynamite right here on the Fightful Overbook YouTube channel from yesterday's Day After Dynamite. Earlier today, I was with Jeremy Lambert for FMC. We discussed trash reality shows, NBA, Entourage. Go over and subscribe. Please subscribe if you haven't already to the True Hill Heat YouTube channel. We have a huge week of WrestleMania content. You're going to see some familiar faces like this gentleman right here. You're going to see a bunch of faces from Fightful as well as Fightful Overbook. So go over and subscribe and check us out tomorrow, 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time. True Hill Heat 168. Myself, Miss Chrissy Love. We will be discussing the latest wrestling news as well as previewing. You'll see the full lineup of special guests that we have for WrestleMania week. So can't wait for that. And also on True Hill Heat, in about 1 hour at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Miss Chrissy Love and Stephanie Hypes for the debut edition of Serving Face and Heels, something I'm very excited to debut on the True Hill Heat YouTube channel. So that's all my plugs.
Yeah, so a lot going on. Next thing I got up is I think my next thing was Fightful Select Weekender podcast. That's this Sunday. I do live rounds every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern with Doug. Me and Jessie will do some sort of WrestleMania preview show on her YouTube channel, Jessie Davin.
Yes.
And I'll be doing the Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor review for Fightful on the main channel. That'll be this Friday after Supercard of Honor for Ring of Honor. So there's a lot of stuff coming up, and there's a whole lot of other stuff I haven't even mentioned. The Spotlight every every Thursday with myself and Jeremy Lambert. That's 2 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Enjoy wrestling this week. This is the best time of year to be a wrestling fan. You got Mania, you got the Collective, you got Ring of Honor, you got WrestleCon, you got a whole bunch of stuff. Impact Wrestling's running shows. Everyone's running shows, and IWTV. There's going to be some stuff on there as well. So like, you just go to Fight Talk on IWTV, by the way, and follow me on Twitter at FightTalk_. That's where I'll keep everything updated on what I got going on this week, and really whenever I got anything going on, I'll put it there on my Twitter. So yeah, want to sign us off, SP3?
Yes, once again, a huge thank you to NotAVampyre. Go out of your way, check out our content. It's in the description below for this. Check out our YouTube channel, subscribe over there. Thank you so much for joining us on Degrassi Dudes this week. We will see you in 2 weeks. Enjoy WrestleMania week, and of course, like, comment, share, subscribe. And this has been Degrassi Dudes. Peace.